What my wife, her friend, and two men hid from me. The twist will shock you. This evening promised to be ordinary. A cozy dinner at home with my wife, Anna, and her best friend, Olivia. It was our usual way of spending time, but tonight felt different. As soon as Olivia walked through the door, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a tall man with a confident gaze and a relaxed smile. "This is Mark, an old friend," Olivia explained, as if justifying his presence. Anna seemed to already know him, warmly embracing him before I could even ask a single question. "Oh, Mark is an old acquaintance," she clarified but avoided details. Her gaze lingered on him longer than usual, stirring a slight unease in me. The surprises didn't stop there. Minutes later, Liam, another of Olivia's acquaintances, joined us. He was lively, chatty, and quickly bonded with everyone, but something about their sudden presence felt off, as though they were here for a purpose I couldn't yet grasp. As dinner began, the conversation was unusually tense. Olivia and Liam were joking around, while Mark supported Anna in almost everything she said. Their dynamic felt like they shared a secret. I couldn't pinpoint what, but it kept me on edge, my eyes constantly darting between them. Stepping out to the hallway to answer a phone call, I accidentally overheard part of their conversation. "Are you sure this is the right moment?" Mark asked quietly, his voice filled with concern. "If not now, then when?" "He has to know," Anna replied. Returning to the room, I pretended nothing had happened, but questions raced through my mind. What were they hiding? And why did it involve me? Later, after a few glasses of wine, Anna suggested playing Truth or Dare. It struck me as odd since she'd never shown interest in such games before. Yet everyone agreed, and the game began. The first questions were lighthearted, stories of childhood mischief and embarrassing moments. But when it was Anna's turn, Liam asked her, "What have you been hiding from your husband?" Anna paled but quickly composed herself. "I'll save the truth for next time. For now, I choose Dare," she said. Liam smirked as if he'd expected this answer. "Then I dare you to tell everyone what you've been hiding." Her face tightened, and she glanced at me. "All right. It happened while you were on a business trip." Before she could continue, Mark interrupted. "I don't think this is the right time for such a discussion," he said, his voice laced with urgency. I felt my pulse quicken. What were they keeping from me? And why did Mark get a say in what I should or shouldn't know? Anna sighed, looking at me with desperation. Her voice trembled as she began. "It happened before we were married," she started, pausing to let the tension settle. "I spent a night with Mark. We were friends, and at the time, it felt like the right thing. But I knew it was a mistake as soon as you and I started building our relationship." The room went silent. Olivia exchanged a knowing look with Mark, while Liam idly swirled his wine glass, seemingly indifferent. I struggled to keep my emotions in check, but the sting of betrayal clouded my thoughts. "And you never thought I deserved to know?" I asked, fighting to suppress my anger. "I didn't want to lose you," Anna replied, her eyes brimming with tears. "It meant nothing to me. You are all that matters." I turned to Mark, who simply shrugged. "Nothing," he said calmly, each word cutting through the air. "That may be true, but it seems you remember that night better than you admit." "Olivia, if you know something else, you'd better say it now," I said, struggling to keep my composure. She looked up, hesitation plain in her eyes. "I only did it for her," she said softly, "but there are things you won't understand. Not now." Her words felt like a cold shower. What did she mean? What was I supposed to understand? And why was all of this surfacing now? The silence in the room was almost tangible. Conversations had frozen as I fixed my gaze on Olivia. She looked tense, but her eyes held something deeper, an emotion difficult to describe. The tension between us grew, and my patience was wearing thin. "Olivia," I began, locking eyes with her, "you said you did it for Anna, but now I need to know. What are you hiding?" She sighed, as if ready to answer, but instead of words, she did something completely unexpected. Olivia walked up to me, leaned in, and kissed me. Her lips brushed mine so quickly that I didn't have time to react. The kiss lasted only a moment, but it felt like an eternity. When she pulled away, the room was dead silent. Everyone looked shocked. Anna froze, her expression a mix of outrage and disbelief. "What the hell are you doing?" Anna shouted, springing to her feet. Olivia lowered her head, but her voice remained firm. "It needed to be done, so you'd understand that sometimes we do the wrong things, but they make sense." "Sense?" Anna's voice rose. "Kissing my husband? That makes sense to you?" I was too stunned to speak. Mark watched with that same smug expression, as if he were enjoying the chaos unraveling before him. "Anna," Olivia said, turning to her friend, "you know I've always been there for you, always supported you. But sometimes, I felt like I wasn't just doing it for you. Maybe I was looking for something more, too." Her words sounded like she was trying to say something profound, but couldn't quite articulate it. Anna looked like she was about to explode but held herself back. "This is ridiculous. This is absurd," she said, turning to me. "You couldn't have known, but now I want to hear. What do you think about all this?" I looked at Olivia, who stood silently, avoiding my gaze, then at Mark, who continued to observe, and finally at Anna, who looked both disappointed and furious. "I don't know what to think," I finally said. "This all feels like madness." "It's not madness," Olivia said quietly. "It's just the truth that's been hiding in the shadows for too long." Anna shot her a furious glare. "What truth? You expect me to believe this somehow justifies your behavior?" "I'm not asking you to believe me," Olivia replied, "but maybe you should think about why I did it." Her words only added to the confusion. I didn't know what to do, and it felt like the situation was spiraling further out of control. Suddenly, Mark spoke. "You know, I have a suggestion. Maybe it's time for an honest conversation. No secrets, no games. Otherwise, this evening could end worse than it started." Anna stood facing Olivia, arms crossed, her gaze a mixture of anger and disappointment. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. I felt like I was missing something crucial, something that had been brewing beneath the surface for a long time. "Fine," Anna finally said, leaning forward slightly. "Talk. If there's something you want to say, now's the time. I'm done with these games." Olivia sighed, and her expression softened. The confidence she usually wore was replaced with fatigue and regret. She sat on the couch, pausing for a moment before speaking. "All right," she began. "Anna, you know I've always been there for you. I've supported you when things were tough. But it wasn't just because we're friends. I wanted to help you because I've always felt you deserved happiness, even if it meant staying on the sidelines myself." Anna raised an eyebrow in surprise. "What are you talking about?" Olivia looked at me, her gaze suddenly tender. "I've always envied you," she admitted. "You found someone who loves you, who's willing to do anything for you. And maybe I wanted that for myself." Her words hit me like a freight train. They felt genuine, but the implications were too heavy to ignore. "You mean to say that—" Anna began but stopped, as if afraid to finish the thought. "I'm in love with him," Olivia said softly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her words landed like a bombshell. Anna stepped back, as if struck. I was too stunned to respond, standing in silence, staring at Olivia. "Would you like me to continue or adjust this for audience engagement on your channel?" "That was a long time ago," Olivia quickly added. "I never tried to take him away from you, Anna. But it's true. I fell in love with him when you two had just started dating. I thought it would pass, but it didn't." Anna remained silent. Her face changed with every second, as though she was battling an internal storm of emotions. "So all this time, you stayed by my side, supported me, knew about my secret with Mark, and yet, you were in love with my husband?" Olivia nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Yes, and I regret it. But I couldn't leave you, couldn't just disappear. You were important to me, as much as he was." "This is nonsense," Anna shouted, turning sharply toward me. "And you? What do you think about this? Did you know?" "No," I replied, struggling to remain calm, though my insides churned. "I didn't know. I couldn't have imagined." Anna started pacing the room like a lioness trapped in a cage. "So now, I'm supposed to believe that all these years, my friend and my husband—" "No," Olivia interjected quickly. "It's not what you think. I never acted on it. These were just feelings I tried to suppress. Please believe me. Anna stopped and stared at me. And you? Did you ever feel anything for her? The question caught me off guard. I glanced at Olivia, then back at Anna. Words caught in my throat, and I didn't know what to say. Maybe all of you need to take a moment, Mark suddenly chimed in. It seems like this is too much for everyone. His tone was calm, but there was an undertone of irony that irritated me even more. Anna stepped closer to Olivia, their faces just inches apart. I want to hear the whole truth, Anna said coldly. And if I feel like you're hiding something? Both of them looked ready for confrontation, and I didn't know how this would end. But one thing was clear. The night was far from over. Anna stood before Olivia, arms crossed tightly. Her gaze was icy, and it seemed as though she was preparing for battle. Olivia looked torn, but appeared to summon her strength for whatever was to come. I stood aside, feeling the tension in the room becoming unbearable. I want to know everything, Anna demanded, her voice sharp. And this time, don't hold anything back. If there's more, say it now. Olivia lifted her head, her eyes glistening with tears. I've already told you everything, Anna. It's the truth. Yes, I fell in love with him, but that doesn't mean I betrayed you. I would never do that. Anna shot back. Falling in love or not, it's still a betrayal. How could you stay by my side all this time, knowing what you felt for my husband? And how am I supposed to trust you now? Because I loved you, Olivia suddenly shouted, her voice breaking the tension like thunder. Anna froze, and I stood in stunned silence, trying to process the weight of those words. What did you just say? Anna asked quietly, as if afraid of the answer. I loved you, Olivia repeated, calmer this time, and I still do. I never wanted this to happen, but I couldn't control it. It was stronger than me. Anna flinched as if the words had struck her like a blow. She lowered her gaze, but then abruptly raised her head. So you're saying that all this time, you wanted not just my husband, but me too? Olivia nodded, her face full of regret. I tried to forget these feelings, but they wouldn't go away. You've always been more than just a friend to me. But I knew it was wrong, so I kept silent. I didn't want to lose you. Anna stayed silent, the room growing heavier with the weight of unspoken words. I couldn't imagine what was going through her mind. Suddenly, she laughed, a short, sharp, almost bitter laugh. This is absurd. My best friend is in love with both me and my husband. What's next? Is Mark going to say he loves us both too? Her words made me tense. Mark, who had been quietly observing all this time, suddenly lifted his head and smirked. Well, I could say that, but I think my story is a little more complicated. Mark, shut up. Anna snapped, her tone sharp and filled with something more than irritation, fear. This set off alarms in my head. I felt like there was something crucial Anna was hiding. Anna, I said, addressing her directly, trying to understand what was going on. Is there something you want to tell me? It's not important, she said, but her voice wavered. No, it is important, I insisted. Anna exhaled as if trying to gather her thoughts. Fine, she finally said. If you want to know the truth, here it is. I haven't been perfect either. Her words hung in the air, sending a chill down my spine. What do you mean? I asked, barely containing my anxiety. It was a long time ago, she began, sighing. When we first started dating, I was unsure about our relationship, and I spent a night with Mark. I thought it would stay in the past, but now it's all coming back. Mark simply shrugged, but his smirk grew wider. I told you, all the cards would end up on the table sooner or later. Anna stepped closer to me, her eyes filled with regret. I never wanted you to find out. It was a mistake, and I regret it more than anything. But now I'm afraid you'll never forgive me. Anna stood in front of me, her face a mixture of sorrow and anxiety. Her words seemed to escape her lips, but they weren't enough to quell the storm of emotions brewing inside me. I couldn't look her in the eyes without feeling the chasm growing between us. Please, listen to me, she finally whispered, stepping closer. I know I made a mistake, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. You mean everything to me. I looked at her, but my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Her confession, Mark's behavior, Olivia's kiss. All of it felt like pieces of a larger puzzle I couldn't piece together. Anna, I began, trying to keep my anger in check. How do you think I'm supposed to understand this? To accept this? After everything that's happened, how can I trust you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, almost touching me. Her hands barely brushed mine, trembling slightly. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she quietly said, "I love you. I'll do anything to make you see that." The next moment, she leaned in and kissed me. Her lips were warm, full of desperation and hope. It was a kiss meant to erase the pain and doubt, but instead, it brought a new wave of questions. When she pulled away, I looked at her, unsure of what to say. My head was filled with conflicting thoughts. Her attempt to rebuild the connection between us felt genuine, but could even the greatest sincerity hide an even bigger lie? Mark, who had been silently observing from the corner of the room, chuckled, breaking the moment. "Interesting," he said, shaking his head. "A kiss, always the go-to move. Or so you all seem to think." "Shut up, Mark." Anna snapped, her voice a mix of frustration and suppressed doubt. "You really think that's enough?" Mark continued, ignoring her. "That one kiss is enough to erase the past?" I felt my anger toward him building. "You shouldn't even be here, Mark," I said. "This is our problem, and it doesn't concern you." "Doesn't concern me?" He raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "Do you really think that? Maybe you should ask Anna if I've ever truly been out of the picture." His words felt like a punch to the gut. I turned to Anna, waiting for her response. She only shrugged, her gaze fixed on the floor. "Mark, stop," she finally said, her voice strained. "Or maybe I should continue," he said, stepping forward, "because it seems there's a lot left unsaid here." "Not now," Anna snapped, her voice trembling. I couldn't take it anymore. "Say whatever you need to say," I said, turning to Mark. "If you have something to tell me, say it now." Mark only smiled slyly. "I'll tell you if you want to know, but you have to be ready for what you'll hear." Anna grabbed my hand, her fingers squeezing mine as if trying to stop me. "Please, don't listen to him," she whispered. "We can work this out between us." Her words only deepened my doubt. Was Mark right? Was there really something between them that I didn't know? Mark stood leaning against the doorway, his expression calm, but his eyes sparkled with challenge. He looked as though everything unfolding was part of a game he had already mastered, knowing exactly who would win. "Mark, enough," Anna said sharply, but her voice trembled. It was not a command, but rather a plea filled with fear. I looked at her. "What are you afraid of, Anna? What could he possibly say that I don't already know?" "Maybe I should explain," Mark said with a smile. He lifted his glass of wine, took a sip, and set it down on the table. Then he looked directly at me, not breaking eye contact. "You want to know the truth? Fine. I'll tell you. Anna and I were still seeing each other even after you two were together. And it wasn't just casual." His words hit like thunder. I felt the ground shift beneath me. The room became narrow and suffocating, like a cage. "That's not true," Anna exclaimed, but her voice was too weak to convince anyone. Mark's smile only widened. "Oh, it's true, Anna. Remember that night after your first fight? You came to me, saying he didn't understand you. We spent the whole evening together, and I think you know what happened next." Anna froze, her face turning pale. She tried to say something, but no words came. "That's a lie," she finally whispered. It wasn't like that." "So it happened?" I turned to her, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was boiling. "You were with him when we were already together?" "It was one time," she shouted suddenly, "and it was a mistake. I was frustrated, angry at you, and I didn't know what to do. It meant nothing." Her words felt like a knife to the heart. She stood before me, crying, but I couldn't find the strength to comfort her. "Nothing?" Mark laughed. "Maybe it meant nothing to you, but not to me. And do you really think he'll believe you after all this?" "Shut up," Anna screamed, turning toward him. Her voice was full of desperation. "Why?" Mark replied calmly. "Maybe I'm just giving him the truth he deserves. He has the right to know who you really are." I couldn't take it anymore. "Get out, Mark," I said, clenching my fists. I don't want to hear another word from you. As you wish, he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. But if you want to know more, you know where to find me. Mark left, leaving us in silence. Anna sat on the couch, her face wet with tears. She looked up at me, but I couldn't meet her gaze. I don't know what to say, she said quietly. I love you. I always have. It was a mistake, but you mean everything to me. I remained silent, trying to process everything that had happened. Her words seemed sincere, but could sincerity erase the past? Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. We both turned, and I felt the tension in the room rise again. The knock startled me. Anna, still sitting on the couch, quickly lifted her head. Her face was a mix of anxiety and panic. I looked at her, then at the door. Did you invite anyone else? I asked. No, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I slowly approached the door and opened it. Standing there was Olivia. Her expression was serious, but her eyes held something new, determination. I need to talk, she said, stepping inside before I could respond. Anna stood up from the couch, looking confused. Olivia, what are you doing here? This isn't a good time. No, it's exactly the right time, Olivia said sharply. She looked at me, then back at Anna. I can't stay silent anymore. If Mark decided to spill everything, then I have to tell my truth too. I felt the tension in the room become almost unbearable. What truth? I asked, not taking my eyes off Olivia. You need to know that Mark wasn't just your rival, she said firmly. He manipulated Anna, and not just her. What do you mean? Anna looked shocked, her face pale. I know what he's done, Olivia continued. He used everyone who got close to him. He seduced, promised, and then left them with broken hearts. And you, Anna, were one of those he used. But he never loved you. It was all a game to him. That's not true, Anna said sharply, but her voice lacked confidence. You know it is, Olivia said. You told me yourself how he behaved, how he made you doubt yourself. You were never happy with him, but you kept seeking his approval. It was a long time ago, she said quietly. Mark is only half of the truth, Olivia added, just as another knock echoed at the door. I looked up and walked over, feeling the tension rise. When I opened the door, Liam stood there. He looked serious but slightly uneasy. Sorry for intruding, he said as he stepped inside, but I think I need to tell my version of what happened. You're not part of this, Anna said sharply, her voice firm. But I know more than you think, Liam replied, his gaze fixed on me. Mark and Anna weren't the only ones in this story. Sometimes the ones who seem innocent are the ones hiding the most. I felt as if the ground was falling out from under me. Speak, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Liam nodded. Mark didn't just seduce Anna. He used her to get closer to you. It was always a game for him, and he never acted alone. What do you mean? Anna asked, her voice tinged with fear. Olivia was part of his game too, Liam said. Olivia looked shocked. That's not true, she exclaimed. You knew what he was doing, Liam insisted. You stayed quiet because you thought it would protect Anna, but you also helped him, even if you didn't realize it. Olivia covered her face with her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't know he would take it this far, she whispered. What else should I know? I asked, feeling my anger grow. Anna looked lost, her gaze fixed on the floor. The words she seemed ready to say were stuck in her throat. Her silence weighed heavier on me than any accusation. Anna, you're hiding something, I said, struggling to control my voice, though fury boiled inside. Mark said a lot of things, but the way you're reacting speaks louder than his words. She lifted her head, and I saw fear and regret in her eyes. Yes, I knew, she finally admitted, her voice trembling. I knew Mark was manipulating everyone, but I couldn't say anything because I was afraid of losing you. Her words were a blow. I felt everything I thought I knew about our relationship begin to crumble. You knew what he was doing, and you stayed silent? Why? Because I thought I could stop it, she replied, her voice growing louder. I wanted it to stay in the past. I was trying to protect us. Protect us? I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. You hid the truth from me and call that protection? Anna stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached out to me. Please understand. I was trapped. Mark always knew how to manipulate people. He knew how to make me stay silent. He threatened to tell you everything if I didn't keep quiet. I stepped back, her words only adding to the confusion. And you decided to go along with it? Why didn't you trust me? Because I was afraid of losing you, she said again, her eyes filling with tears. I was scared. I thought if you found out the truth, you'd leave me. You should have given me the choice, I said, feeling my emotions boiling over. Instead, you let him control both of us. She stopped and took a deep breath. It wasn't just about him, she said quietly. I froze, bewildered. What do you mean? Anna lifted her eyes, a battle raging within them. Mark wasn't the only reason. I did it because I wasn't sure about us. In those moments, I doubted whether we could make it through everything. And I knew if you found out the truth, you would leave for sure. Her words felt like a final blow. I couldn't believe the woman I loved had been keeping so many secrets. And now you expect me to just forget this? No, she replied, her voice soft. I just want you to understand why I did it. At that moment, Liam, who had been standing quietly in the corner, suddenly spoke. Maybe it's not entirely her fault, he said. We both turned to him. What do you mean? I asked. Liam sighed and stepped closer. Mark has always been a master manipulator. But what if it wasn't just a game for him? What if he had deeper motives? What are you trying to say? Anna looked even more frightened. I think he's always had the goal of not just destroying your relationship, but something bigger. Something from his past is tied to you, or maybe even to you, he said, glancing at me. His words left more questions than answers. What could Mark be hiding? And how did it involve us? A knock on the door interrupted our conversation. Anna turned sharply, and Olivia froze in place. Liam looked puzzled but tense at the same time. I slowly walked to the door and opened it. A woman stood on the doorstep, looking like she had just weathered a storm. Her hair was disheveled, and her face was anxious. She seemed familiar, but I couldn't recall where I had seen her before. Hello, she said, looking me straight in the eye. Her voice was quiet, but filled with confidence. My name is Lauren. I'm Mark's ex, and I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. I let her in, and Anna immediately tensed up. What are you doing here? Anna asked, her voice filled with anger. Telling the truth, Lauren replied, her gaze sweeping across the room. Mark has been playing all of you. But what you know is just the tip of the iceberg. Olivia clenched her hands into fists. Are you saying you knew how he was manipulating us? I did, Lauren sighed. But not always. I only realized it after he ruined my life. And now I see he's doing the same to you. You came here just to say that? Anna asked sarcastically. Or do you have something more? Lauren pulled a few sheets of paper from her bag. Here's something more. These are proof of his dealings. He's been using not just your emotions but your finances. He's been making deals behind your back, using your names and resources. I took the papers and quickly scanned through them. There were forged signatures that mimicked mine, along with mentions of Anna. What does this mean? I asked, my eyes still on the documents. It means Mark planned to destroy your family not just emotionally but financially as well, Lauren said. He always plays both sides. He ruins lives and profits from it. Liam stepped in, his voice sharp. I knew he was capable of a lot, but I didn't think he'd go this far. But why are you telling us this now? Because he crossed a line, Lauren said. I decided I wouldn't stay silent anymore when I saw him using you the same way he used me. At that moment, Olivia stepped forward. You knew what he was doing, but you stayed silent? Lauren looked at her, her eyes filled with regret. Yes, but now I want to make things right. And I know you have something to say too. Olivia looked conflicted but then nodded. Mark tried to manipulate me. He promised to help me if I helped him with Anna. But I refused when I realized he was just using me. Anna, who had been silent until now, suddenly stood up. And you decided to say this now? You could have told me earlier, but you stayed silent. Because I was afraid of losing you as a friend, Olivia replied. I thought I could stop him on my own. The words hung in the air like a thick fog. I looked at the three women in the room, each holding their own truth. The silence was broken by another knock at the door. The room was once again filled with tense silence as Lauren held the documents in her hands. Her gaze moved between me, Anna, and Olivia. Liam stood off to the side, silently observing, though his eyes betrayed his distrust. Now that everything is in front of you, I suggest we take a step Mark wouldn't expect, Lauren said, her voice resolute but slightly nervous. And what step is that? I asked, trying to understand where she was going with this. Collaboration, she replied, looking directly at me. Mark is strong at manipulation and planning, but he's always underestimated the people he deceived. We've all been his victims, and now we have a chance to come together to stop him once and for all. And how do you imagine that? Anna, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, but her voice was tense. I have more evidence than what I brought with me, Lauren said. Contracts, emails, recordings. But I need your help to piece it all together and reveal who Mark truly is. Why didn't you do this earlier? Olivia interjected, her voice sharp. Why wait until now? Lauren turned to her, her gaze filled with regret. Because I was scared. Mark has influence. He ruined my life, and I thought I couldn't do anything about it. But now, seeing him continue his games with you, I can't stay silent any longer. And we're supposed to trust you? I asked, crossing my arms over my chest. I understand your doubts, Lauren replied, and they're fair. But I'm willing to risk everything to stop him. If you won't help me, I'll do it alone. But together, we have a better chance. Liam finally spoke up, his voice low and steady. I agree that we need to act, but I'm not sure we can trust you, Lauren. Maybe this is just another one of Mark's games, and you're playing by his rules. Lauren sighed and pulled another sheet of paper from her bag. This is a letter from him. He wrote it to me a month ago, proposing we work together again to destroy your relationship. I took the letter and read it. Mark had detailed his plan, even mentioning how he intended to use Liam and Olivia. How can we be sure this isn't fake? Anna asked, her voice almost pleading. Because I know his style, Lauren answered, and I know how he operates. If you give me a chance, I can help you expose him. But I need your trust to do it. Why should we risk everything? Olivia stood up, her face full of emotion. We've already lost so much because of him. Because if we don't act now, he'll come back and cause even more harm, Lauren said. I looked at Anna, Olivia, and Liam. They all looked uneasy, but there was something more in their eyes. A desire to finally put an end to this. All right, I finally said. We'll try. But if I find out you're playing us, Lauren, you'll be the one answering for it. Trust me, she replied, her voice resolute. We all knew this would be a dangerous path, but it was our only chance to stop Mark. Later that night, as we worked on our plan, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lauren was hiding something. Her motives seemed clear, but were they as selfless as she claimed? A few hours before our first confrontation with Mark, we heard a knock at the door. I walked over and opened it. Mark was standing there, his gaze cold and piercing, his smile almost triumphant. You thought you could play this game without me? He said, stepping inside before I could stop him. I felt my fists clench. This was the moment when all the cards would be laid on the table. But were we ready to hear what he had to say? The knock at the door made everyone freeze. The tension in the room was palpable. Lauren clutched the documents in her hands. Olivia looked ready to explode, and Anna nervously fidgeted with her fingers. I walked to the door, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst from my chest. I opened the door to find Mark standing there. He looked calm and confident, as though he knew his appearance would stir a storm of emotions. His smile was cold, almost predatory. I hope I'm not late for the main event? He asked, stepping across the threshold before I could stop him. Mark, what are you doing here? Anna demanded, her voice trembling with both anger and fear. I think that's obvious, he said, surveying everyone in the room. I'm here to ensure that all the truth comes to light. Unfortunately, your truth and mine are two very different things. Have you come to destroy what's left? I asked, struggling to contain my anger. Destroy? Mark laughed. No, I'm here to fix some mistakes. Because it seems all of you have forgotten who I am and what I've done for you. You're a manipulator and a liar, Lauren said, stepping forward. I've brought proof. You won't fool any of us anymore. Mark looked at her and sighed. Lauren, you've always been so emotional. But please, share whatever you want. I'm sure it will be fascinating. Lauren handed me the documents. Everything is here. His deals, forged signatures, all the attempts to destroy your life. See for yourself. Mark tilted his head, looking at me. Oh, yes, those documents. Are you sure you want to know the whole truth, even if you won't like it? I opened the documents and started reading. They contained forged agreements using my name, fake financial transactions, and even evidence of Mark's attempts to ruin my business. It was more than I could have imagined. Why? I asked, my eyes still on the papers. Why did you decide to do this? Because I could, Mark replied coldly. And honestly, it was fascinating. Watching everything fall apart is an art. You're sick, Anna said quietly. Maybe, he agreed. But I'm not the only one to blame here. You all played your parts. Anna, you betrayed him first. Olivia, you stayed silent, knowing the truth. Lauren, you helped me more than you want to admit. And you, he looked at me, you're to blame for trusting people who didn't deserve it. You have no right to say that, Olivia interrupted, her voice filled with anger. We all tried to fix our mistakes, and you just exploited our weaknesses. Weaknesses? Those were your choices, Olivia, and you know it. Suddenly, Olivia snapped. She cast a tearful glance at me and stormed out of the room. The door slammed, and the only sound left was her hurried steps descending the stairs. I rushed after her, but at the door, I saw a note she had left on the table. It contained just a few lines. I can't take this anymore. I'm sorry for staying silent. Mark didn't just ruin your relationship, but also part of my life. All the answers are in your hands now. I hope you find your way. I returned to the room, where Mark was already smiling. Well, he said, looks like I've won. I approached him, holding the documents in my hands. You've won nothing, because now all your secrets are in my possession, and I'll make sure you pay for this. Mark looked slightly taken aback, but quickly regained his composure. Maybe, but are you really ready to know everything? Because I think there's one more thing you don't know about Anna. I turned to Anna, who looked like her world had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her eyes were filled with regret, but she said nothing. What do you think, viewers? Should the main character forgive Anna, knowing everything that's happened? Or should he leave her and start a new life?